Welcome to the Esthering Podcast, Life in the Old Zone, where what you've been through matters. The Esthering Podcast, Episode 4, is about my life inside a Division 4 youth facility, of which I lived in from the young age of 11 years old to 17 years old, from 1974 to 1981. Sometime around 1974, my mother and father accepted a job as house parents for New York State Division for Youth in the Bronx. This facility was set up to provide a home environment for juvenile delinquent boys between the ages of 12 and 17 or 18 years old. We lived in Brooklyn, New York till I was 11 years old, so I was devastated when I heard we were having to move from Brooklyn to the Bronx, which meant leave my friends because eventually those friendships faded. There were no cell phones back then, and landlines were not going to be tied up by children. The job took my parents to two locations in the Bronx. The first house in 1974 at 1260 Commonwealth Avenue, where the number 42 bus and the 6 train was near the house, my home. The state provided the house full of furniture and food and replenished as necessary and needed. The house had 4 levels, a basement, an entry level with a game room on that level. We had a ping pong table in that room where the guys and I got pretty competitive. The second floor was where my father, mother, and I lived and slept. It also held the living room common area and dining area where we all ate. This was home for me till I was 14 or 15 years old. Then my parents' job relocated us to 1610 Givans Avenue near the number 9 bus and the 5 train Gun Hill Road stop. We were now on the better side of the East Bronx, about 2 blocks in from Boston Road in another 4-level home. The living was not shabby at either facility, so as a child I had no complaints. Plus each place we lived I had a nice room with my own television and the big 4 speakers and a turntable. That's what was popular to have during those times, and I am an only child, so I possessed the popular clothing, the Jordache and Sergio Valente jeans, and a gray sheepskin coat with the gray cowboy boots to match. I bet there are pictures in my mother's photo album somewhere in my storage room, and when I find them, I'll show them to you. So, the purpose of today's episode is to reach out to all the boys that I got to know while we were living in the same house. I wonder often if they are still alive, and if so, how they are doing in life, hoping nothing but the very best for each one of them. They were like brothers to me. I couldn't really be but so close to them though. Still, they showed me nothing but kindness and respect. I do know that 2 of the guys were murdered. First it was Henry Innis before I was 14 years old. I remember when my mother received the phone call from his father, she couldn't hold back from telling me. We cried together. He was such a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, always sort of joking with my mother. She had a soft spot for him, regardless of the job, as she did for all the guys really. But everyone knew Henry was her favorite. He stole that spot. I believed he was shot, but he might have been stabbed. I do now remember it was in the staircase of his building. That was not the projects, and however it was done, I have blanked out the details. That is how my survival mechanism to horrible things work. I don't even recall if we attended his funeral. Maybe my mother and didn't take me. I barely remember my father's funeral, and I know I attended his. Thank God I still had my mother at the time, and at that time all the planning and paying decisions came from me. I was his beneficiary, but still my mother made everything happen. She knew his final wishes. For me, the death of a loved one stops me in my tracks, and in all I want to do, I can do nothing. I just stay inside and be still. I don't do much but survive. Mourning is really a thing. My heart mourns as I allow the love of God to comfort me, and that in reality requires long periods of time for me, it seems. Having my mother around me then helped me cope. Larry Scott, another brother, my best friend at the time, like him. They actually, what we called back then, went together. I never knew the extent of their went together, go together situation, but I do know they kissed. I do know he visited her home, not with me, of course. My mother, Mrs. Booth, ran a very tight ship, and I knew my father entered all her rules, even if he didn't like them. I believe I heard about Larry's death through my girlfriend Nisi once we reunited after I joined the military. So Larry and Henry, I know, are deceased. Julio R., I had a low-key crush on him for the first moment. Clarence, we called Buster, ran the house, no one cried Buster. And Buster loved my mother and father, and therefore, things in the house were mostly very calm and stable in the facility. None of the guys challenged how my mother ran things, and I say my mother because she was the primary full-time worker at that state facility. My father was a part-time worker there. He went to work back to Brooklyn every day. He was a carpenter. Back then, black people were shade tree mechanics. My father was that too, and he worked daily as an unlicensed carpenter, and he was phenomenal at both. Most of the men in my family are good at being a mechanic and a carpenter. That is not easy to find in a black man these days. Times have changed. Okay, so Walter, Julio, Buster. The next on my list is Barry W. Now he was the next Buster in the house. Once Buster aged out or was aging out, Buster got into a great college from what I can recall. Where you at, Buster? No one wanted to see him go, but he was off to greener pastures. Buster, I would love to be able to at least have a conversation with you, actually. All of you guys, any of you, if you are hearing this, please reach out to me. Back to Barry W. We attended the same junior high school. It was Henry Hudson Jr. HS 125. I looked it up, and because we did go to the same school, no one messed with me. That's the kind of clout he had. He was that guy. Quiet, barely ever smiled, big, handsome, well-dressed, clean cut, and you know he could easily get his pick of a lady litter. He had that quiet power. He didn't play. Jonathan, same as Barry W. in his own way. As a matter of fact, there might have been a little friction between them, but nothing went down in that house. Oh, I just wish somebody would reach out to me. Maybe someone kept up with the other or ran into the other if they stayed within the NYC limits. I believe it was a blessing for the guys to come through the New York State Division for youth. At the time, my parents were house parents because my mother knew what she was doing. She was a social worker turned NYC police officer. Before she took the house parent job, she had compassion and street smarts, and she's from New Orleans, Louisiana, so her fortitude was definitely strong. Since there will be another time for me to go into details about anything I said today, hopefully it will be during an interview with someone who is more curious about this arrangement. I am going to list the names of all the guys without interruption because I am realizing that I could go on and on about this time in my life and remembering each guy and our encounters while we lived under the same roof. You are listening to the Esthering Podcast. Please, before I go, like, comment, and subscribe to hear and see more of me. Your contribution here allows me to contribute to my passion, which is contributing to improving the lives of foster children. If you lived in a Division for Youth facility at 1260 Commonwealth Avenue or 1610 Givans Avenue in the Bronx, New York from 1974 through 1981, and you remember Mr. A.B. Booth and his wife Althea Booth and their daughter Adrienne, please reach out to me. If you'd like to be on my podcast, we can do that. If not, we can keep our conversation. And the fact that you reached out to me between us, I would love to hear from you. Or if you are a relative that knows and remembers the lives of the names I am about to call out, the same offer is open to you to reach out to me and we can have a conversation. Okay, I'm looking for Walter C., Julio R., Clarence known as Buster, Barry W., Harry L. W., Frankie S.,